welcome. You're watching I24 News. We're coming to you live from Tel Aviv. And 2 Israeli women who were held hostage by terrorists in Gaza for nearly 2 months have been freed. 21-year-old Mia Shem, who also holds French citizenship, she was seen in the first Hamas propaganda video that was released with a painful-looking broken arm. She is free. She is back in Israel tonight, and she was kidnapped from the Nova party near Kibbutz Re'im. 40-year-old Amit Sosana, who was kidnapped from Kibbutz Kfar Aza, has also been freed. Both women are back in Israel after being handed over to the Red Cross and brought back to Israel tonight. Well, we are expecting another 8 hostages to be freed by Hamas tonight, according to the family of 16-year-old Aisha Al-Ziadna. She and her brother Bilal will be released, and a source close to Hamas claiming that 2 hostages with Russian Israeli citizens also to be released. There we can see this is the handover earlier in the day of 21-year-old Mia Shem and 40-year-old Amit Sosana. They were both handed over to the Red Cross. There you can see a large crowd of Gazans have turned up. In previous scenes like this, they've been heckling and jeering the hostages newly released from captivity, where they've been held for nearly 2 months. There they are being handed over to the Red Cross. They are now back in Israel and will be taken to hospital. That's Mia there in the yellow hoodie. There she is being handed over. They're both back in Israel. Well, there has been a ceasefire in place for the past 7 days now, and under the terms of that ceasefire agreement, Hamas has released 97 Israeli hostages. All of them are women and children, except for one man, Ronnie, who was released. Well, Egypt and Qatar say that they are trying to get Israel to agree to extend the truce for another 2 days. Reminder, 143 Israeli hostages are still being held by terrorists in Gaza, most of them men. If the handover goes as planned tonight, there should be no more children in Gaza, except, of course, for the Bibas family. That's 10-month-old Kfir and 4-year-old Ariel. Hamas claimed yesterday that those children had been killed. Well, let's go to Sheba Hospital. Our Zach Anders is there, and the hospital is on standby, isn't it, Zach, for the latest hostages, including 21-year-old Mia?
The hospital director says that they expect Mia will be brought here this afternoon as part of the plan to separate some of the hostages between care teams to different hospitals. So here at Sheba Medical Center, they're expecting to receive 2 of the hostages tonight. They've received 27 to date, and of those, only 13 remain hospitalized in care. So many have been discharged. The 13 remaining are the generalized statements that we've been provided about all of their conditions is that they're doing well. The doctors have not dove specifically into each and every case in great detail or at great length, but they have said that for what they've been through, that their health and their mental state is good considering the context of what they went through, but otherwise they are taking extreme precautions, especially with the children and their psychological state. Some of those children are still here hospitalized. That's mostly, I'm told, as a precautionary measure, but also so that they can have time to unwind from this experience and to be able to perhaps be observed for a few more days, so that if anything was to come up, of course, in speaking to several experts, the psychological trauma sometimes does not present itself right away. It sometimes takes days after a traumatic experience for it to fully present itself, and then for the doctors to know exactly what they need to do next and how to treat some of these psychological traumas. But again, for what we've been told, generally, most of them are doing well. They have lost a lot of body weight. They're receiving fluids and supplements to address specific needs, but otherwise does appear that they're well.
Yeah, that's right, Zach, because we've got hostages of all ages, haven't we? From as young as 3 years old right up to 84 years old. I'm thinking of Elma Abraham, who's still recovering in hospital. A lot of different challenges when it comes to their health and their condition. And we are learning as well about, you know, some of the physical and also psychological hardships that they were exposed to while in captivity.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes the physical trauma can be easily diagnosed and presented right away, but it's the mental trauma that does take more care and diligence to be able to diagnose and understand. And some of this field of medicine too is still developing. It's not an exact science when it comes to trauma care and perhaps even brain injuries. These are very complex things. When we are talking about the physical injuries, though, as we see in the images with Mia Shem, she's got this large metal rod protruding from her right arm that appears to have been some sort of attempt to reset a brake or to provide stability to that arm. That presents a whole litany of challenges for the medical staff here to know that there was a medical device implanted in one of these patients and that it wasn't done by their staff. They're not going to have the medical records. This isn't like some sort of, you know, in most medical spaces or in emergency trauma environments, you know, there's a great amount of documentation about the care that was presented, what the doctors before did, how they did it. That's not going to be available here. So the doctors for her are going to be walking into her case and her situation relatively blind with just some of the media that we've all seen online and on television. And then they're going to have to start care and start treatment basically from square one.
Yeah, really hard to see that poor girl with that bandage on her arm, isn't it? Zach, thank you very much. Zach Anders there. He's at Sheba Hospital. Mia Shem, 21-year-old who has been freed by Hamas, will be treated there shortly, and we are still waiting for the release of another 8 hostages who are due to be freed tonight under the terms of that ceasefire, which expires at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. With me in the studio, Colonel Dr. Moshe Alad. He's the former coordinator to the Palestinian Authority on Security Issues in the IDF. We're also joined by Owen Alterman, our senior diplomatic correspondent as well. Thank you both. Moshe, the truce is due to run out at 7 a.m. Egypt and Qatar say that they are trying to get it extended. Should Israel, given that there are still 143 hostages being held in Gaza, should Israel agree to extend it?
The chance to release those people is absolutely our responsibility. I guess that Israel should give them another chance to be able to see that their family will see them back in Israel. However, the situation is a little bit complicated. It's more complicated than it appears in the media. First of all, it's an overwhelming, a suggestion how to end this crisis. Qatar and Egypt and maybe some other would like to see a more overhaul, a big solution to what's going on now as called the Gaza crisis. Like, for example, what will be the day after. They are much more interested in, for example, bringing Abu Mazen and the Palestinian Authority to Gaza. This is very obvious. Israel is more interested now in bringing back the hostages to the last one, about 140 something. I guess that we'll be able to see up to the last minute, which will be close to the deadline of the ceasefire tomorrow morning, that then we might know what is the position and the standpoint of Hamas. They will play with that as they usually do, and at the last moment we'll know exactly what they are thinking about, extension of the truce.
All right, thanks, Moshe. And Owen, as Israel has said all along, it has 2 missions, bring back the hostages and destroy Hamas. Just to point out comments made by the Hamas leader, Sinwar, in recent hours. He says October 7th was nothing, that was just a rehearsal. And this is kind of echoing what other Hamas officials have said, that they do plan to carry out another massacre, as many massacres as it takes against Israel.
Yeah, that's right. That's their plan. That's their intention. And I think that after what we've seen, their words have to be taken seriously. The words in Gaza, for that matter, words in Ramallah. And I think intentions and stated intentions, whether it be the leadership or frankly the Palestinian public, large parts of it, again, a poll that showed about 70% support for Hamas on a various range of questions in both Gaza and the West Bank. So obviously Israel and Israelis and the Israeli public have to be cognizant of that and plan policy around it, which again brings us back to the dilemma at this hour in Israel about how to balance between the two goals. The one goal, ending Hamas' control over the Gaza Strip, eliminating Hamas's military capabilities, and on the other, bringing the hostages home. And while it's true that the Israeli public, even though we don't have polls, as I've said, I don't think we need them to understand that this deal has been widely popular. And people have been very, very satisfied to see the pictures night in, night out. And we're going to see more over the next few hours, Laura, of hostages being freed and reunited with their families. But again, in the background, the need to get back to that other goal of ending Hamas control over the Gaza Strip so that Yahya Sinwar's vision can't become reality.
Yeah, okay, and thank you, Owen. And yeah, it's true, isn't it, Moshe? Night after night, Israelis have been glued to their TV sets, looking at the scenes of people being reunited with their families, you know, much needed relief psychologically for the country. But there are still major security challenges, of course. We had a terrorist attack in Jerusalem just this morning.
Yeah, the security issues are absolutely major issues, you know, in order to continue from the moment we stop. It may take some time to make some preparations, you know, to know what's going on. Bear in mind that also Hamas had some time to recover and see what they can do, and hopefully not, but I'm sure that now they are much more prepared for so-called the last attack. The last attack, I mean, will be in the south. Now, here we come to the problems that America is putting, the obstacles. They would like us to be very humane. They would like us to know how not to harm the uninvolved people. This would be very, very difficult. This is a very dense society, dense population there. We're not going to play there like, you know, like surgical events. This is going to be tough. So let's see how IDF will take care about that. However, I would like to say that they are working now on a so-called final solution, the day after. One of the suggestions that I have heard is that they would like to offer to Sinwar and his people to go to exile for about 5 to 10 years and let the Emirate and Qatar, you know, conduct and take care of Gaza. And this is new for us. I don't know to what extent it's, you know, it's serious, if they are really about that, but let's see, maybe that's
Would you be in favor of that?
Who?
Letting Sinwar and the other Hamas leadership go into exile?
I don't know if this will be the last and the final option that will be able to get our people, to get Sinwar out of the Gaza Strip and demilitarize the area. This can be a good solution.
All right, well, let's talk about what happened in Jerusalem this morning. 3 Israelis were killed in a terrorist attack at a bus station at the entrance to the city. Jonathan Regev has this report.
The shots can be clearly heard echoing in the Jerusalem rush hour. Here are the 2 terrorists, armed with an M16 rifle and a handgun, shooting at anyone they see, killing 3 people and injuring various others.
I saw the car stopping by the station. It seemed suspicious from the start. The driver got out of the vehicle and pulled out a weapon. I realized immediately that this is a terror attack.
They ran to their car for more ammunition, and that is when they were stopped.
A very quick reaction from 2 soldiers and a civilian on site neutralized the terrorists, and they were both eliminated.
This event illustrates another thing. How important is the policy of delivering weapons? Despite the criticism, I will continue with the policy of handing out weapons everywhere, including to emergency units and civilians.
The terrorists are 2 brothers from the East Jerusalem neighborhood of Tzur Bacher, both with a history in Israeli prisons and with connections to Hamas. Police and border police units raided their homes, searching for more potential terrorists.
Our forces are spread in every arena to neutralize every possible threat. These 2 terrorists were eliminated, and the same will happen to every terrorist coming to Jerusalem.
Israel's focus may be on Gaza, but as we learned once again, the potential for escalation comes from every possible arena.
Well, to talk more about that, I'm joined now by Fleur Hassan-Nahum. She's the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. Thank you very much for being with us, Fleur. And terrorism in the capital today, 2 women and a man murdered while they were waiting at a bus stop. I mean, Israel has just released dozens and continues to release dozens of Palestinian prisoners. Can we expect more of this?
Well, I have to tell you, this particular bus stop was also the scene of another shooting attack. I think it was a bomb attack less than a year ago. It seems to be a hot spot. Jerusalem, we have to understand, has about 40% Arab population, and most people want to live in peace, but there are some sleeper cells, there are some radicals, and Subacher, which is only about a kilometer from where I live here in Baka, very close to the Arnona neighborhood, is one of those very, very difficult hotspots where we find a lot of radicalism.
Hamas has claimed responsibility for this attack. Is this a violation of the ceasefire?
I would think that it was a violation of the ceasefire. I'm not sure that Hamas leadership planned it from Qatar and from Gaza, because I think they're busy with other things. But definitely these people are connected to Hamas, and these people were inspired by what's going on with Hamas right now. And if they've taken responsibility, that's all you need to know. They've already violated the ceasefire many times. They violated it 2 days ago. They violated it the 15 first minutes of the ceasefire on Friday morning. And so I think Israel has to really unequivocally act against these violations of the ceasefire by, going back in, not continuing or making them pay in some other way.
Well, what is your view then? Do you think that Israel should extend the ceasefire? It's due to expire at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, given that there are still 143 hostages being held, people's fathers, people's grandfathers, some women as well. Hopefully, by the end of tonight, there will be no more children in Gaza. But what do you think? Do you think Israel should renew that ceasefire?
Well, as long as we can bring our innocents home, then it's worth for Israel to keep the ceasefire going. We need to get as many people out of that hellhole as possible. And really, that is the obligation, the moral obligation of the country. But also, maybe there are ways that they have to pay for these attempts. Like, for example, why do we have to keep releasing the prisoners? And especially if we do release the prisoners, why are we releasing them onto East Jerusalem? Why not release them to Gaza? They want to be with their brethren in Gaza, with their Hamas brethren. Let them go to Gaza. Why are we releasing prisoners in the same areas as the people that they try to kill?
Well, yes, and on that note, one of the people freed, she's now 16. When she was 14, she tried to stab her neighbour while she was taking her children, and her children saw it. Right, and this person will be moving back into the house next door to her victim. I mean, how can she go on like that?
It beggars belief.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm very sorry to interrupt you, Fleur. We've got Anthony Blinken
for the future of the Jewish people and for the future of Israel. We appreciate very much your personal commitment to this just war, and we are going to fight Hamas till we prevail, no matter how long it takes. It's a just war. It's a war to win Hamas, the ISIS of Gaza, and it's a war to bring the hostages back home, as long as it takes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yoav. First, I should say, again, this day started off in a terrible and very negative way with another terrorist attack that took the lives of innocent Israelis in Jerusalem. A reminder of what Israel and what every Israeli citizen has to face every day. We condemn it, and we also mourn the loss of these innocent lives as we mourn the loss of any innocent life. At the same time, this was the 7th day of the humanitarian pause, the 7th day of hostages coming home to their loved ones. And I know that for Israel, for the United States, for a number of other countries around the world who have their citizens being held hostage by Hamas, we want every hostage to come home. And so we look to see if this can continue. Certainly that would be a good thing. It's also allowed much more humanitarian assistance to get in to the Gazans who need it. But it's going to be up to Hamas whether they will continue to do this. We had a very good conversation session earlier today with the Prime Minister, with the War Cabinet. I appreciated the discussion we had. I'll have more to say about that later today. And again, look forward to our conversation now. Thank you.
With your permission, can I say a few words in Hebrew?
Of course.
אדוני מזכיר המדינה, ברוך הבא לישראל. אנחנו מעריכים מאוד את המחויבות האישית שלך למען מדינת ישראל במלחמה הצודקת כנגד ארגון הרשע.
The evil organization Hamas.
מעריכים את מחויבותו.
We appreciate Joe Biden's commitment for the state of Israel. We will continue in our war until we win it, until we will defeat Hamas and end its ruling power, governance power, and military power, and return all of the hostages. I repeat, all of the hostages, returning them to their homes. We know that at our goals of the war, we are united with the United States, and we value it very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary of State.
There we are. That was the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant there just speaking a short while ago. Blinken met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Herzog today. He's also been meeting with the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. So Owen, you were listening into that once again. The Defense Minister outlining that this war has two goals: bring home the hostages and destroy Hamas.
And Antony Blinken didn't have much to say about the war, did he? He talked about the importance of the truce and bringing all of the hostages home. He talked about the importance of humanitarian aid going into Gaza. He said he had a meeting with the War Cabinet earlier today, and he would have more to say about it later. Again, he's holding a press conference in just a few hours. I'll be there. But he didn't have anything to say about the war. And again, Yoav Gallant, again, with the rough translation we just did of his statement in Hebrew, thanked the United States for being united with Israel in the goals of the war. But given the emphasis, at least in these comments by Antony Blinken, and frankly other comments we've heard from him and Biden administration officials, I think there is a question about whether there is a meeting of the minds between these two countries on that goal of the war. Does the United States still support the end of Hamas control over the Gaza Strip and the elimination of Hamas's military capabilities? I don't know that the answer is yes, or maybe not yes at all costs in the same sense it is from the Israeli side, that the costs in terms of the humanitarian situation in South Gaza could outweigh the benefits of completing that goal of the war from the American perspective. And they have dropped pretty heavy hints in that direction. And I suspect that difference of opinion breaking out into the public is going to be a big story tonight and a big story over the next couple of days and maybe beyond.
All right, thank you, Owen. Do you think we're going to see, I mean, it's easy for the Americans to say they support Israel at this point, isn't it, when we don't have the conflict going on, when we don't have when we don't have the Israeli Air Force operating over Gaza. But it is going to become very difficult if the war has to move south, where a lot of the Palestinian civilians have fled.
As I just mentioned, it's a very dense population. A lot of problems that the army may face inside those neighborhoods in the south, and especially in Khan Yunis. This is the city that Sinwar and his people from the leadership were born. They are getting much more support there. But having said that, I would like to emphasize our deterrence as IDF, as Israel, is at stake. If everybody looks what's going on now, we cannot just stop the war now. We have to continue and finish the work. I guess United States understand that, but they would like us to do it in their ways, be humane and try to be as much as possible.
A war without any casualties.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, just very quick note. Listen, to be fair, the Biden administration is not calling for a ceasefire. It's not taking the position the French government has taken, for example. But I think confronted with two options, if we are in a world with only two options, and I don't think we are, but if we are in a world of two options, option A, the end of Hamas control over the Gaza Strip and elimination of the military capabilities through the kinds of tactics we have seen up until now applied across the breadth of the Gaza Strip. That's option A. And option B, a different approach to the situation of Gazan civilians, but possibly risking the fact that Hamas survives. It seems to me that the Biden administration would choose option B. That doesn't mean they don't want Israel to succeed. That doesn't mean they don't want Hamas to suffer a blow. It doesn't mean they wouldn't be very, very happy to see Hamas off the scene. But they do not believe, it seems to me, that the benefits outweigh the costs to Gazan civilians, to the humanitarian situation, to what they see as America's national interest, and in terms of maybe the president's interest in domestic politics to some degree. In that scenario, they see the costs as outweighing the benefits. And obviously that opens up a real gap and a real difference of opinion with the Israeli government, and not just the Israeli government, with wide sections of Israeli society for the exact reasons that we just heard.
Right, well, we'll see how that diplomatic process plays out. As you say, you'll be going to listen to Tony Blinken later tonight.
And I should be clear, I think there is an option C, which we'll talk about in the days to come.
All right, hold on to that for a moment, because just an update on what happened in Jerusalem today. 2 people who were wounded are currently undergoing surgery after they were shot by 2 Hamas terrorists. The 2 terrorists were killed at the scene by police. A 22-year-old woman and a 52-year-old man are being treated for gunshot wounds, and a 17-year-old yeshiva student, Akiva Schwartz, he's being treated for shrapnel in his leg. 3 people were murdered and 2 people are undergoing surgery right now. Well, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Nahom Hassan, is with us now. Fleur, we were just talking, weren't we, before we were interrupted by the US Secretary of State? We were talking about, this, she was 14 and she tried to stab her neighbor in front of the woman's children. She's been freed as part of this ceasefire agreement, and she'll be moving back to her home, which is right next door to her victim. I mean, how is the victim going to go about a normal life with this person next door to her?
I can't begin to imagine the distress of the victim it was an attempted murder in front of her children, how the neighbor who tried to kill her goes back. I don't understand who would put up with this, in which world this is okay. I really do not understand it. And if we are going to release prisoners in this deal in order to get our innocent hostages back, at least the condition could be that there's some type of restrictive order and about how close that person can get to the person they try to kill. There should be some type of restraining order on all of these ex-terrorists or current terrorists who have been released.
And Phil, I wanted to ask you as well, because you've been doing a lot of appearances in international media over the past few weeks, and there has been an effort, hasn't there, in some parts of the press to try and draw an equivalence between the hostages who are being returned and the Palestinian prisoners who are being freed from jail. How do you address that?
Well, this is part of the same twisted narrative that we've been seeing from the second day after the massacre. I started doing international media from the first moment, actually, from the Saturday morning. And I knew that we had a shelf life to any type of sympathy from the world. But now the questions that we're getting about, the women and children that you're releasing from Israeli jails. And of course, you have to explain to them, first of all, that all of the people being released are literally attempted murderers. They are people who tried to kill, but they failed to kill. And that is why, and that is the deal that we have here. So we're not talking about innocent women and children, how they try and portray it. Then the other thing they say is, oh, you had a boy in there for throwing stones. Now, when they talk about stones, they want us to believe that it's a pebble thrown on somebody's head or car, when we're talking about a 2-kilo boulder that can, open somebody's head and suddenly kill them. So again, if this was British law, we'd be talking about grievous bodily harm, and that is an attempted murder. And so again, this equivalence that they try and do is part of this narrative that somehow the reason why the October 7th massacre happened because of something we did, and somehow us defending ourselves against that happening again is genocide.
There also seems to be, an effort in some parts of the international press to say that Israel is the only country which detains minors, juveniles, and of course, every country does detain juveniles.
Well, any juvenile which tries to kill somebody gets detained. It's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. But then you've got somebody like Bella Hadid or Gigi Hadid writing these things to her, 200 million followers. They have more people. There's more people following them than countries, country populations, and people actually believe it because people don't bother to check the facts because we're living in the hashtag generation, and truth doesn't matter anymore, and facts don't matter anymore.
All right, Fleur Hassan Nahum, thank you very much indeed, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem there. Thanks. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.
All right, well, just to update you, 2 Israeli women who were held hostage in Gaza for nearly 2 months have been released tonight. 21-year-old Mia Shem and 40-year-old Amit Sosana are back in Israel tonight. They're on their way to hospital. Well, let's just go to central Israel now. Our Ariel Osseran is in central Tel Aviv. And we're going to talk, first of all, about something going on far away, Ariel. This is kind of another front that has opened up against Israel. This is the Houthi rebels, the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. They've fired several missiles at Israel. They've said they want to join the war. They've called on Saudi Arabia to let their soldiers march into Israel. Tell us a bit more about what is going on in Yemen today.
Right, Laura. So if the Houthis in Yemen, the Iranian-backed militia, said that they wanted to join the fight, and indeed they did join the fight against Israel, it appears perhaps the fight has reached the Yemeni soil as well, according to reports in recent hours by media outlets close to the Iranian-backed Houthis, claiming of an explosion in the Mount Atara area, just in the southwestern part of Sana'a, the capital. Now, initially it wasn't clear what the cause of the explosion was, but according to those same Houthi sources, saying that this was an explosion of old munitions belonging to the Saudi coalition, and that they exploded in the vicinity of dry wood, and that caused the images of fire and smoke coming from the Yemeni capital. That's not the most convincing of explanations. Meanwhile, Saudi Al Hadath reporting that this was indeed as a result of an airstrike on a Houthi weapons depot in the Jabal Atan area in the city of Sana'a. The area is considered a Houthi stronghold. Simultaneously, the Americans claiming that they did not carry out a strike in Yemen. So obviously this is still a developing story, but indeed this would potentially be the first time that there is some sort of strike on Yemen. Whether this is who this was carried out is not quite clear at this moment, but it is a possibility, an indication that perhaps the war that the Houthis have been so eager to join has finally reached their territory as well.
Yeah, interesting. Ariel, thank you very much. Ariel Osseran there with an interesting development in Yemen. Yemen's Houthi rebels have said that they have already joined the war against